Hey y'all, and welcome to Political. My name is Brian, and Donald Trump does not hold back, and he just goes after Biden for his litany of failures on the economy, and even to the point where he's holding up the shrinkflation version of Tic Tacs. This is wild. But before we dive in, I want to introduce you to our friends and sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. These people understand how to protect your hard-earned dollars against Bidenflation with gold, silver, and other precious metals. Now, let's go.
The energy is what caused this massive inflation that we've suffered through. And then everything caught on. I mean, do you ever see bacon where it went up four times over a course of 3 years? So I don't eat bacon anymore. It's too expensive. But unbelievably, Crooked Joe Biden went on television last week and he proclaimed in an interview with Americans that he's saying that Americans can actually afford his brutal inflation tax. He said they can afford it. He declared that families, quote, have the money to spend. They have the money to spend. They don't have the money to spend. They've run out of money. I mean, they're on literally, people don't have, if they get sick, if they're away for 2 or 3 days of income, I don't know, what do they do? You know, you're spoiled. You're a lot of rich, very rich people. You know, you set all sorts of records tonight. Have you heard that? You set attendance record and you set a money-raising record. But can you imagine if you miss a couple of days of work, can you imagine you can't pay your bills? I mean, we have the highest percentage of that we've ever had. And Biden blamed his economic disaster on companies shrinking the size of their sticker bars, okay? Can you believe that? But you know, it's a funny thing. I don't know if you can see it out there. Does anybody have good eyes out there? Because this is, okay, so I just got this today. Somebody handed it to me. So weird, and not as a joke. I said, anybody have any Tic Tacs? And the guy said, yeah, I have one. Look at the size of that sucker. Can you see that, Pete? This is called Biden Tic Tacs. Can you see it, Tom? This costs more money than the one that was like 10 times bigger. This is inflation. That's a perfect. The guy actually handed me, do you have any Tic Tacs? Yeah, here, take mine, sir. I say, what the hell is that? I'm never going to lose this. This is going to be a part of our. Terrible.
We know that our products are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, just kind of like the way our dollar is getting worse and worse and worse, and it's just devaluating at a terrible rate. And that's exactly why we have brought on our friends over at Colonial Metals Group, their president and CEO, Paul Stone, for a special edition of Political. Paul, welcome in.
Great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always good having you here. So, granted, Trump is always a little bit funny. He practically does stand up on the stage, but this is unusually unique and a major point. This seems like it's just more and more proof that Bidenomics has just absolutely failed the American people. How did we get here?
Erosion, to me, and not to just keep beating this to death. I know it's not the sexiest thing to keep pointing out when there's so many ultra sensational news items to talk about, but the erosion of principles and truths began in 1971 when Nixon took the limits off the government's printing press. So when you think about when they start into this belief system that printing money or having more money will solve the problems, it started to destroy a reality around money and things that happen around money, because to me, money is energy. It's not just, don't think of it just as capital, right? When it flows into an account, like an investment, what can now happen with that money? That energy now gives action to the ideas. Like pretend you're just starting a company off the ground and you get an infusion of capital. It's really energy that now launches ideas in one's mind into action. And the erosion of principles has been happening for almost 53 years now. August 15th will be the 53rd anniversary of Nixon's decision to perpetrate evil upon the world, because this erosion of principles is what's causing this chaos. And now we're just at this extreme end, seeing and witnessing this destruction, things just blowing up all over the place. There's so much to talk about that proves that concept is happening.
Well, it's awful, and it's a big reason why millennials like myself don't even dream about owning a home anymore. It's bleak out there, and it keeps on getting worse and worse. So when it comes to Bidenomics itself, how did that continue the cascade effect? What specifically did Biden think was going to work? Uh,
Well, I see, if we sometimes it's necessary to give clarity to something by comparing it to something else, and not necessarily in the good or bad comparison game, but in the this or that. So COVID hits, and my understanding from what I studied is essentially a $20 trillion economy went where it produced 11 trillion in 2020, 2021. So you have a delta of 9 trillion bucks that you need to create, or you're literally back in the dark ages, because we are a consumer spending driven economy. 70% from my studies and analysis, 70% of our economy happens because you and I spend money. And that's kind of sickening, because if we decided to just all save a hell of a lot more money and gear down our lifestyles to where we could save a hell of a lot more, we would destroy our own economy. So that's how precarious it is and how badly it needs the spending of money to continue to work.
wow.
When Biden takes power, so that printed money filled a gap in a way, that 9 trillion or so that had to be created during 2020 as the economy shuts down, the border shut down, trade stops, economic activity stops, to try and stop the spread of coronavirus. What Biden created when he took office was this massive capital infusion over and above what the economy would generally consume. So, in a way, if half your workforce takes a vacation in 2020 and doesn't want to go to work, and that creates a $9 trillion gap in a $20 trillion economy, if you print that 9 trillion, you aren't really creating inflation, you're destroying the dollar. But what you're doing is just backfilling what the workforce didn't create that year. When Biden came in, and their idea to just flood the world with another, I believe, $1.5 trillion, which is a gigantic sum of money, even though it's a one, a dollar, $100, 1,000. $1.5 trillion is more than lifetimes of money. All at once, the economy didn't know what to do with that infusion of capital. And so it caused massive price surges everywhere. And so this inflation is a new injury upon the injuries that have been happening over the last 50 years. So when you talk about Bidenomics, it seems to want to create a havoc that then therefore causes the society to think it needs even more bigger government and more government help and more government programs. It
That's
certainly didn't solve a problem.
it certainly hasn't seemed to solve anything, but man, oh man. So they decided, let me get this straight. They thought that in order to save the economy, they had to flood it with money.
Here's the thing: it's dangerous to try and truly understand their mindset, because you might slip one day and end up just like them. So watch out for that.
That is a scary thought, because right now our politicians, for some reason, think that they can switch out presidencies with 4 months to go. They think that they can get away with this. And they're right, they can, but we notice. We see what's going on. I feel that we have had like a decade go by in the past 10 days.
Yeah,
We have
I
seen
agree.
an attempted assassination of a president,
Mhm.
a the sitting president basically admitting that I can't do the job anymore. I just saw the first public appearance Joe Biden has had in days, and he looks terrible. There are years where decades happen. There are decades where nothing happens. We are currently in a year where decades happen. This is absolutely insane. So if Trump is wins in office, is there a good way to really fix this money problem, or are we stuck with this for life?
And I want to make sure that people hear I am for the best and most qualified candidate at all times. And I think
Absolutely.
in our modern world, there should be some litmus tests that you have to pass. I mean, hell, you have to have a driver's license to drive a car. There should be some things you got to qualify for to at least be a candidate for public office, especially the White House. So, but we're well beyond the vote. Well beyond the vote. when you're at the point where you have $34 trillion in printed money, I won't call it debt anymore. You've heard me say it. It's not debt, because debt has the idea that it'll be repaid, that somehow it's temporary. I'm going to buy a home, I'm going to someday own it, right? So that's a debt, right? Because I'm going to pay that mortgage payment 12 times a year. Eventually, I'm going to own the house. It's just way beyond a vote, because it's a math problem that can't be solved. And I don't want to get into the boring subject matter of what caused this Grand Canyon-sized hole in our economy, unless you want me to touch on it. Just know that it's there, evidenced by the fact there's $34 trillion in debt. And we've gotten used to this over the years because it's grown slowly and it just keeps coming along. And we don't really know what we're hearing because it's so foreign to us. So if you just imagine you were eating in a diner, eating breakfast, and someone just, it's 9 in the morning and someone just breaks into belts into the diner, kicks the door open and screams, "They printed the money! They printed the money!" And you'd look around, what the hell is that guy talking about? They're paying our debts with our bills with printed money. They're just printing the money. You would think, oh my God, wait. Our economy doesn't produce enough money to pay its own bills? Holy, F-bomb. What? Well, we'll just sit here and hear about it and this is what I try to break these bubbles for people. This is the main bubble to break, and that is the government isn't solving shit. They are not solving any problems. They aren't qualified to. They don't know how to. Einstein said the mind that creates the problem cannot, as an absolute word, like zero, cannot possess the solution. So stop looking for the solution to come from a podium, because it's only going to come from you, the individual American man and woman, boy and girl. Truth, like what we were born with, our parts. There's truth that just can't be looked away from because it's inconvenient. So you've got to empower yourselves and start thinking for yourself. And what I try to help people do, and I'm sorry to go on long here, but I can't help myself. I try to say to folks what I can help you become aware of. My message is your autonomy. You want to get up and drive to Kansas today? You get to, because you have some saved money. If that resource evaporates, goes away, is destroyed, taken, destroyed, whatever, then you don't get to just pile into your car and drive to Kansas today. So protecting your autonomy, the right and ability for you to get and say what you want to do with your time, is because you have a retirement savings behind you that you can draw on. And when you look at where it's located, to me, you would want to understand the constructs of cash in a safe at home. What does real estate involve? Truly, go down into who are the players in that are involved in you owning real estate or rental property and such. People paying those mortgages, people paying those rent payments. The financial world in the vault. And when you look at precious metals, it's not man-made. It's really hard to find. The world has always used it as money or backed the money, except these 53 years of this financial video game that Nixon set in motion 53 years ago next month. So when you look at principles and truths, your money kind of might need to be built from that. So you can be damn certain it stays yours, heading into worsening and worsening chaos and uncertainty and destruction. That's my message. Sorry to stand
that's
on my...
fine. You answered it in a way that truly does burst the bubble. I'm not programmed to think like that. Well, Mr. Stone, thank you for coming on. We appreciate your voice every time. You are able to just reshape the way I'm able to think, and I'm all here for it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all, that's all we have here on Politibrawl for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.